3 minutes? I guess actually I can crank up the time a bit. Start a bit early with a little, just a little intro to give you an idea of. So, a little bit of the story. Back in the days, was not known. Well, first of all, Minty Root is not my name; it's the name of my OC that I basically adopted because back in the days was known as player.exe, which was kind of try hard, edgy, hackerish. But back in the days, I didn't really know much. Oh, Kiwi, you can come by. I mean, I thought you'd come earlier, so actually, I was talking a bit about my first name. You probably remember back when I was known as player.exe.
A little bit, a little bit.
Okay, so basically, that was back in space camp. Basically, I went to space camp because I back in the days I loved science and I just wanted to experience it because it felt interesting. And I got disappointed. I kind of because I didn't realize how much of a social thing it was, so I didn't have as much of a good time. And basically, the guys there just wanted to contact me later on because contact with everybody else. So I had to make up a username so they could actually contact me. And I was just thinking, yeah, my email is player.exe at yeah, it's totally my email. And like 2 months after, I had to make a Hotmail account because the one thing that my dad used basically my dad is a computer programmer. He teaches classes, so he had some weird convoluted technique to actually get his emails because he used didn't use an email client like everybody else. So we had to set our computer at home on Linux and type a very very long email to very long web address just to get to access our email. So basically, at one point, I just made a real email account like everybody else. So I basically became player.exe for years until I realized that the little issue that some people made me realize in Skype calls just being called player all the time. Just stop calling me player. So I basically just took the name of my OC, and that's basically how I became Minty Root. So back in the days, basically my father was a computer programmer, so he wanted me to learn a bit of Visual Basic. So I was trying to make up some stuff on the computer. I was just trying to make stuff up, and one thing my mother always said that my grandfather said was that if you wanted something to happen, you had to make it. And back in the days, I didn't really have any video games because I kind of didn't know how to ask my parents, can I have some video games like everybody else? So I just tried to make my own. That's kind of how I got to learn a bit how to use computers. And back around 2006, I started begging my father, Dad, you're a computer programmer, and the computer we have at home is garbage. It's a Pentium 3 with like 64 megs of RAM. Can we have something better? And he did. I was super glad, and I actually finally got a real computer to animate. And he had some books about Flash, because back in the days, Flash was used as a web programming tool. You could actually make some kind of Yeah, remember the whole Flash website that would load and you would have all the obnoxious sound effects?
Oh yeah,
And
I remember that stuff. Where I remember when the early days of Flash, where it was a bunch of just boxes, where like sometimes the boxes had borders, but that was animation back then.
and stock sound effects. Yeah, one of my first things that I ever done with Flash was take just basically there was a stupid game with a clown throwing pies at another clown, and I just thought let's make it more video gamey. So I changed all the assets and I coded a few more things. So it would be about Mario throwing fireball at Luigi. It was really fun.
You really hated Luigi, apparently.
No, I just he was always seen as the one that always was treated harshly.
The not Mario.
I blame a thing that I discovered around 2006, 2008 that was called Super Mario Bros. Z. Actually, have you ever heard about that thing? Okay, for those in the audience who have never heard about that thing, let me introduce you to the little intro of how epic it sounds like. Let's...
I was gonna say that's loud as well.
Just to stop right now, they had objects that were not even on their path that they actually jumped into just to look cool. That's how badass it tried to be.
I mean, to be fair, when was this made?
2006.
I mean, that's not that bad for that time. I mean, it looks pretty decent.
Yeah, and that's 20 minutes of that. It was basically a TV show that was packed with full of action and a lot of dialogue. Though, since it was Flash, there was no voice acting, there was just dialogue boxes. They gave you the option to actually the time to read the text and press space, the space bar to actually move to it. So if you just wanted the action, yeah.
So, along with the whole like Flash used to be a website thing, programs change a lot. Starting with Photoshop, Photoshop didn't have a Control Z like when it first came out. In order for people to change or Control Z in Photoshop, they had to go into the coding, undo the action that was written in the code, and then that was Control Z. Programs will change all the time, especially with like animating and the standard. Like, how old is Toon Boom? Do you know?
They're now at Toon Boom 15. They used it for many years. Basically, what movie? What is it? Basically they did the Princess and the Frog. With Disney, they had to switch to Toon Boom because their old tools that they had with, ironically, with Pixar to do 2D animation, they were getting so old they actually had to switch to Toon Boom. So there was also the Simpsons movie which was animated in Toon Boom. Yeah.
This isn't like Toon Boom supposed to kind of give up that like great effect because I remember in those like early like 80s, like 90s movies or whatever. I mean, they would have to incorporate some CGI in it because, for example, I think I noticed this when I watched like when Ariel was rushing down the stairs, the stairs actually looked pretty CGI.
For that scene, that was a very early CG. They actually went with some CG that they did, but that one was not actually done in Toon Boom. The only scene that actually involved computer compositing was the last scene where you have the characters who's waving at the boat, like that. And
There are other movies like Treasure Planet. Like you can see a lot of the earlier starts. Like you can see like
but Treasure Planet was actually years after.
Yeah. I'm just saying like
Yeah.
where you see the earlier starts of like you can if you watch the movie like the hair is really well done. It's like you can see each like almost each follicle like it looks great, and then there's like other 3D aspects that don't look as good because you know back then where it's still sort of like really textured Play-Doh.
Back in the days, the computers were definitely not as powerful, so they couldn't. Well, one of the things that people kind of don't think about is that computer power also influences the feedback you have from the result. So if you have more instant feedback from the result of adding something to a scene, you can actually change it more often. If you change it more often, you actually get a better result that feels better to the eye and the actual feel.
Yeah, with the whole
Yeah.
anime thing. Obviously, don't go as like, okay, I'm gonna. I saw the animating live panel. I'm gonna go buy a $1,500 computer and start animating. Once I get home. Go with what you have now. Obviously, don't use like something really bad, but it does help when you have later on. Like when I first started drawing, I went with a $70 tablet.
70?
Yeah, it
And
was-
that's basically what I got myself.
Yeah, the one that needs to be replaced.
Yep. That's the same tablet I've been using for all my projects since 2013. That's how old that tablet is. And by old, I mean it was already old when I had it.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
use, right?
Yeah. Actually, I was talking about that project because I wanted to introduce a bit how I started in the fandom. Yeah, basically, because back then, one of the things that actually pushed a lot of creators, because, for example, if you looked at the very early 2011, 2012 animations, a lot of them just had one angle for the characters. For example, if you look at Epic Web Time, not Epic Web Time, Epic Cupcake Time, the characters always in one angle because they had to do everything from scratch. So for doing all the angles, it took a lot of time. So back in the days you couldn't. So one of the things that actually helped push a lot of creators to actually animate stuff was the release of the double rainbow rigs, and
Oh yeah, it's like giving tools that you need for like everyone.
they kind of show their time, but they have their charm. For example, if you just look at for example the tips of those hooves, the lines that just go with some kind of coordinates. Just that idea, the eye shines that are just too big, the dead eye expression, the angle is kind of awkward. But back then, it helped a lot of creators just skip that thing entirely and just animate whatever they wanted. So my first animation project was done with those. I put my own tweaks because some of the stuff felt a bit weird to me, so I wanted to make it different. But it helped a lot of creators, and ironically, because Double Rainbow, the Double Rainbow rigs were created by the Double Rainbow team because they wanted to bring a lot of people. They wanted to bring people to test with their rigs, to submit animation tests and get a lot of crew because it was 30 minutes of animation that they wanted to do as the first fan episode ever. And ironically enough, those double rainbow rigs were actually used for something entirely different that actually became the first fan episode ever.
Ah, that old animation, Jesus.
Yep.
Oh, that tweet.
Oh! What's it called? I forgot.
You're not supposed to say the name.
But I know what you're talking about. It was like a really like old Final 20 animation though. I think like a lot of people said that got cringy over the years because now that I look at it, the ponies look like freaking Pony Creator ponies that
Actually, yeah, it's the exact scene where it's not. It's cringy now. Like even when it came out, it's still.
Well, when it was released on Equestria Daily, the actual reception was pretty good.
Works. Yeah.
Well, kind of. I'll skip the dialogue. The thing with the character is that you don't really get what he's saying, but none of what he's saying is actually relevant to the plot. So
Can you go frame by frame?
I think so.
Or even just this, the fact that they just drag it across and tween the rest of that,
And-
not even moving anything.
And the thing is that I kind of talk bad of that, and
Look at the hooves. There's a bump on his right hoof. I don't understand what that is.
elbow,
Yes, but where's this elbow on this other hoof?
a tumor. Though the quite interesting part is that this is one of the first fan animations I've ever seen in the fandom. And I looked at it and it just said, well, it looks like something achievable. I could do something a bit like that. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be too hard. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to join to try myself with fan animation. And I talk a lot trash. For example, there's a scene, not there.
I could just say all scenes.
Yeah, this scene where they have those things that never get brought up in the entire thing, and they don't. They kind of glance around it, just like it's supposed to be some kind of secret, but nobody gets. Nothing happens with that scene.
You think they were trying to do like they're trying to go into like game theory shit, or like they're trying to get super lore heavy, but like no one ever got into it?
Maybe but the thing maybe it's that maybe it's just a joke that they threw in because they wanted to joke about the idea that some castles have weird stuff like that. But the thing is that this was done by people who had never done pony animation in the past, and
That's
I gotta respect the fact that they wanted to do something like that. They could have, tried something smaller, but being ambitious is not the worst thing ever. And some people compare it to the Room, but to be honest, it's more like Justice
you
League.
find more enjoyment out of the Room than this.
Yeah,
Because
seen
that is hilariously funny.
Have you seen? Has anyone got to a showing of the Room? People throw
Oh,
spoons at the screens.
yeah,
It's awesome.
Yeah, I heard that.
There's like every time there's a spoon on screen, everyone throws like a spoon at the screen. It's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of culture, but
I'm comparing it to Justice League for another reason. You have 6 characters, okay, while Justice League has 5. Wait, 5 or 6?
I
I think they have 6, and one of them turns bad. Actually, one of them turns bad, which is exactly what happens in Justice League. The bad guy who has the most weirdest motivation ever. The fact that they throw all of that at once without introducing most of the characters. It's some of the same criticism. Though that thing had maybe like $20 of budget, while the other had, I think,
So,
140
along with
million.
I do respect them for trying.
Yeah.
Like, because ambition should never be like should never what's the word criticized in a way.
Well,
the issue is
Also, it was the well, we don't pay to watch it, so we cannot really complain too much. They have issues, but
they still did it, which is impressive. But that's one of the biggest issues with starting animation is that like I've fallen into the same trap like multiple times. But like a lot of people when they ask like, oh, hey, I'm animating this so and so thing. It's like, okay, so what are you animating? It's like, oh, I want to do a music video. A PMV, like all hand drawn, 24 frames per second, of X, Y, and Z song. I'm just like, you do realize if a song's like 3 minutes long, that's a lot of frames to draw. And if you're gonna do each frame, that's gonna be a really long time. You're gonna get bored in like the first second of the song. You realize that you draw your pony in the first scene. It might not even be moving. Then you realize you have to line it, then color it, and then you're like, and then shade, and then you're like, oh, cool, I did 1 frame out of like, what, 2,000, give or take.
Let me open up the calculator.
So it's like, okay, like 315.
Okay, so 3.5 multiplied by 60 seconds multiplied by 24.
So 5,000 frames.
Yep.
Yeah.
Though the thing though is that nobody ever does everything at 24. They cheat a lot, and cheating is a good thing. For example, if you look at even Lullaby, there's one of the scene. It's more obvious to me because I kind of see it where you can see that they actually tweened Celestia's head, which was a static head, and the rest of the body was actually moving.
It was like a sort of a puppet thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
like,
that was not entirely puppet, but it actually did the work that was.
He did a hybrid. He or she did a hybrid of the techniques, which is using a puppet. He did some CGI. He did a lot frame by frame, which is what very impressive about the animation. But back to the whole ambition thing, go do it. But I recommend starting with either learning the basics of animation, where it's like you don't start with someone shooting a gun. You start with like a ball going up and down, something simple. Making a small GIF, doing that, maybe doing a head turn. That's adorable, and just posting small GIFs. And then as you get recognition for your stuff, as you get people who really say oh, this is really nice, then you go into more complicated things, and that's how you grow as an animator.
Yeah, and also in it says 5,000, but also don't forget that characters once in a while just don't move. You have the right to have scenes where you just have a character that just stares and you just put a little dolly in. Those things they happen in live action, they happen in animation. Don't be afraid to cheat. Looking, for example, in Luna's determination, there's one scene where you have just Luna who's just realized, oh no, that's gonna happen. The actual thing that actually happens, she just while the camera moves, that's all that happens.
Okay.
So yeah,
It's creative.
well, I mean, this is storytelling. You have tools to actually do storytelling. Once in a while, it's not moving the characters. It can be audio cues. In MLP, just the sound design does a lot to affect the animation. Well, I mean, compare it. Well, okay, it's not the best to compare because they don't have the same budget, but this comes from the same studio as Johnny Test. And a lot of what makes Johnny Test horrible is reusing the same sound effect all the time.
Oh, the whip sound. If you look at, there's a YouTube video where someone counts how many whips in one episode. It was like a generic, and then it got to like 70?
Maybe?
Every time a character went on screen, and there's obviously like 4 to 5 characters on screen usually at once, they would always use the whip sound. It was horrible.
Aren't they like 11 minutes long episodes as well?
Yes, and they still got so high. I'm like, I don't understand. Some were like in the same scene. I'm like, why do you need to use the sound effect so much? But with all shortcuts,
because they had a library and that there was sound effect for the whip and nothing else.
I assume it's basically, okay, so I want to make sure this character has presence when they come to a scene. I understand that. It's just don't use the sound effect that much.
Oh, the character has wit, not whip. Oops.
No, it's just the whip sound. It's just horrible. I remember when there's a McDonald's commercial that was a style of an anime.
Hmm?
It was actually really well done. It was very short, but there's a scene where it's someone else, but they're in front of the store, and then they hear a voice coming from the right, and they turn to see the voice, and then the camera pans up on the character that isn't the main character, but you hear the main character's voice in the background. So with that, you can just have someone, okay, just draw this character, full body, then we're gonna have the camera pan up while the audio goes in the background. So you save on animation, because you don't have to do the actual movements, and then the lip sync, because although you're talking and you still relate to the talking in the conversation, you don't have to do the lip sync, so that saves a lot of time.
And reusing frames as well, you can do that as well. Because don't forget, we're just people who animate on the side. I have a 9 to 6 job. After 6, I take my stuff, I take the metro, get back home, and yeah, I have a few hours to work on it, but that's all. So make the most out of that time. So
yeah, we do this because we love it.
yeah.
Like it's an absolutely wonderful feeling, but I totally understand the whole. I go to job at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then come at like 1 o'clock at night, and they're like, oh, Kiwi, well, not using my screen name obviously, but what do you do at home? Like, oh, nothing, and then I just grab my stuff, go to my corner in the room, turn on the computer in the small light, just like, okay, now for this frame. Until I just pass out. But we do this because we love it. It's an absolutely beautiful process. If you haven't tried animating and you're wondering why we love it, the reason why I would say is like it's almost like the love of being a parent.
Well, the way I see it, because some people might think, okay, fan animation is kind of the fame, just that you do something that's technically different, and you get to go to cons and talk to lots of people. But no, fan animation is its own reward. The fact that because you kind of usually have a message, usually it can be just a joke, it can be a message of power, of sadness, you can talk about your emotions, you can just talk about what you think about the show. Just to be able to talk about that and have people hear that just means a lot.
Don't get into this for forcing, please don't. I promise you there's actually easier ways than being an animator.
Analyst!
Oh, we'll throw in some shade. But like if you, okay, so let's name out some really popular animators.
Gen Animation, which is he's OCD when it comes to animation. He does everything in Flash because, it's in the technical level, if everything is done on the same software, it just works.
Just a couple of the higher
dual cartoonist.
Yeah. You.
Warp Out.
Yeah. And like all these names, but you realize that if talk about the whole fame thing, you realize that a lot of them have no content in between, because each animation takes so long to do. and the amount of fame that you get per animation, the amount of time, does not equal what it is for other parts of the fandom. For analysts, usually, even really good ones. Okay, let's just not talk about the whole really bad analyzing. If they actually analyze stuff really well and talk about okay, this is good, this frame is good. That versus animating, you get significantly less reward from the fandom and also from other people. We do this because we absolutely love the feeling of watching a drawing come to life. It's a wonderful thing. If you've ever drawn, you can be like, okay, here's a blank piece of paper, now has a person on it, awesome. But animating is a whole new feeling. It's now there's a person, but now he comes alive because he can do things that I want him to do. It's amazing. I would recommend just making a small GIF. It's such a beautiful thing.
How does it feel like you take your phone, you show some things to someone, and he just looks at that, he just takes the phone, he just says, "You did that?
Yeah.
Just that."
Or the unfortunate feeling of just, oh, cool. Oh man, I spent 2 weeks on that. Oh well.
Actually, it reminds me of a story. Basically, I went to an anime convention a few years because I had some friends there, and there was a guy who, it was cool. He had a channel where he was reviewing games that were not very well known, and he tried to make his channel. He was not just a reviewer who was just screaming at games. He was having fun. He was making actual skits with actual production values. And yet fun and all. So, it was the kind of guy I wanted to show my stuff to impress him because he felt like... So I showed him my stuff. It took him 3 conventions until he asked me, "Wait, you animated that?" "Yeah." "Oh, okay, I thought you were editing just clips from the show." "Okay."
No, I'm just thinking about all the...
It was not a brony, so you couldn't tell all the things that are wrong.
But you said that was your first animation that you saw in the fandom?
That was one of the first.
Did you see the show at all?
Actually, I saw some screen caps and some. Basically, I heard. Okay, I feel bad about that, but I heard about that about the Daily Wet, which was connected to Know Your Memes.
Oh.
There's Know Your Memes. Yeah, Know Your Memes. And I was just thinking, okay, it's probably a meme. People will just take a thing and just joke about it, and
this guy's wearing a wings.
And then I saw there was the guy who did the My Little Pony physics presentation. I just thought, okay, it's probably just made it. It's probably something memey a bit, and I didn't think it would be that serious.
There's the guy who has a resume that's based My Little Pony themed.
Oh yeah.
It's he has a bunch of computer stuff, but in the background's Equestria. There's ponies as the bullet points. And I think his name's Rainbow or something. It's oh
god. Yeah, there's OC on that one.
Yeah, I remember.
I think it was just vinyl scratch with the logo colors different and the logo for our company. Or was it the logo for the USB standard?
You're gonna get to the cringe. I can't get into this cringe.
Yeah. Though I discovered the fandom was a real thing when basically I finally got back in contact with my best friend. It had been years because back in high school he left before I actually got to leave, and took a while. And he invites me at his house, and I bring my laptop, I have some fun, and I see some pony figurines, and just look at them and just think, "So you're brony?" And he tell, "Yeah, I think I am." And it was back before season 3, so lots of stuff that didn't really happen back then. So basically, I joke about it for maybe a month or so. I see that he kind of genuinely cares about it, and I kind of want him to introduce me to the shows. I kind of beg him to try to watch an episode with me, and after all, I just give up. I just watched the 2 first episodes alone. Actually, right after leaving this house, and I watched them, and I discovered it's an actual legitimately interesting thing because there was Nightmare Moon that just shows up and she's serious. I just think, okay, that sounds like a serious show.
He's awesome.
Thanks. So basically, the thing is, and that it was back in summer of 2012, and I just realized, okay, So I watched all of season 2, and we basically wait for season 3 to happen.
And then you said goodbye to your engineering degree.
Oh my! No, actually, that happened around season 4. Yeah, basically, I started enjoying the fandom and all. I just think, hey, would it be fun if I go to a pony convention? And the stuff that I did before ponies, which I'm gonna just show a short piece of how bad it was back in the days. It was animated in Flash with some 3D animation.
I got something moving, so that's a benefit.
Well, it's animation. And no, there was no voice acting back then.
Is Minecraft?
No, back before Minecraft was a thing.
Interesting.
That was the kind of weird stuff I was doing back then. I was just thinking, okay, it's animated in Flash, the show is animated in Flash. I could try to send a panel to try to talk about Flash animation for people who don't really know about it. Maybe I'll spark their interest. But the thing is, I didn't really know that much Flash animation, so I sent a panel at BronyCon 2013. And they accept for some reason. So I'm just thinking, okay, I'm gonna, try to do something, and I actually did some tests to be able to create fan animation back during those 6 months before the con, trying to learn the most I could and trying to figure out. And that's basically how Project on the Cloud happened. It was a mess, but it was just me learning all the stuff I could.
I remember. So, two stories: how I got into the fandom, or the way animation got me to the fandom, and then how I wanted to start to animate. Was before the fandom, I was going to do mechanical engineering. Very.
So you two gave up on engineering.
I know, right? So we could have been useful to this world.
Uh,
The main reason was for that. Actually, not important. By the way, the first thing I saw was YouTube recommended the cafeteria song. I came in late. Yeah, I came in really late to compare to a lot of people. And then I was like, oh, it's people. I didn't know it was Pony at the start. I forget. I think the title was some super clickbait. It's like, look at this awesome song. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty cute. It's like, wait, that's a pony. That's a pony ear. That's a tail. Like, oh, shit. Wait, that's a Twilight Sparkle. That's a weird name. Oh, it's ponies. Okay. And then after that, I saw Party.moth.
oh my god!
Yeah. Yeah, what a great video to start with. And then so, I can't believe I laughed at that back then. Actually, no, I'll still laugh at it now. I remember I saw that, I was like, oh wow, that's good stuff. And then I was like, okay, so what else is there? And then that was really popular, I guess, at that time. And then I saw that, I was like, wow, that was actually pretty funny. It's like, they actually make good content here? And then so after a while, I was like, I got really into Obab Scribbler.
Oh!
I loved the readings, it was just really calming, and then Lost Narrator, stuff like that. Then later on, I went to BabsCon after I was in the fandom and everything.
2015 or 2014?
15.
Oh, so the year I actually made a fool of myself.
Was it?
Well, basically, I was knocking on your door. I was just panicking because I had no idea what
Oh,
the
yeah,
hell I
I
was
remember
doing.
that.
That was the first time I ever flew or went to a pony convention on my own. But, well, there was Canterlot, but I was with a few friends driving. It was not that far, but I was really worried because everything could go wrong, like the hotel not being booked properly, having to sleep somewhere.
But the reason I got into art and animation is not a very humble one, my friend. I got into. I can't tell this with names because he or she is still in the fandom, right? Or is he?
Maybe. I mean, we talk once in a while.
I don't know. Someone might be a fan. Someone might try to kill me later.
Let's just say the grumpy animator.
Okay. I got into animation and art out of spite, out of pure hatred, because there was this anime I really looked up to. It was also popular at the fandom at that time. I was like, oh, I really want to meet him, and I was staff at BabsCon, and I was for specific community guests, and then I really wanted to meet him because he was one of my favorites. And then I tried to talk to him, like, oh, hey, are you on this panel? Because I genuinely want to help him. It's like, okay, so you might be on this one, so it's at this time. And then he completely blew me off. He's like, I don't really care. I was like, oh, okay. And then I tried to talk to him again later. It's like, hey, you might have a panel at this time. He's like, are you going to be there? He just walked away. I was like, whatever, he's a busy guy. The reason why I hated him was because I saw him leaving a panel that he wasn't actually on, but he was just brought on. Then as he was leaving, a fan stopped him. He goes, "Hey, I drew this thing for you," and he's like, "Oh, cool, whatever." He took it, started to leave, and then the guy like got his attention again, and goes, "Yeah, I'm so and so," and he had his badge. And then the guy did like essentially a 180. He was like, "Oh, what's up?" It's like, "Hey, nice to meet you." I'm like, "Wow, that's the dickest move I've ever seen." I was like, And in my head, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get into animation. I'm gonna be more popular than you, and I want to do that to you." And then from then on, I like got Flash, did stuff on my computer. I failed Flash miserably because that thing is
That happens. Flash is basically a piece of software that was created back in 1993 when the internet was starting, when computers had like a gig of storage.
Not only that, it's something that grew almost in such a mutated way that they don't know what to do with it.
Yep.
Because it was before the cloud.
Yep.
And then I remember I was like, okay, so what's this? And then like I did a little bit of Photoshop. And then all of a sudden I pressed one button and it changed everything. I'm like, wait, what did I just do? And I couldn't like backspace. I couldn't change the canvas. I didn't know anything. And then I remember going to YouTube panicking. It's like, what? I don't know what to do, Minty. It's like everything's going wrong. But
just as I expected.
Yeah. But as my Count of Monte Cristo type esque revenge, of just building myself up, I learned I did really love it. I love drawing and I love animating. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to be an engineer.
My reason for not being in engineering was basically at ProniCon 2013. Basically, I made that panel, which was really awkward. Apparently, that same person who you had lots of spite to, apparently was in the audience, and he said that the panel was really awkward. He was right. But I had lots of fun. One of the problems that we had was that the projector was on the table, but the cable that they had was just too short, and I wanted to show stuff with the actual software. So I had to run, go by the door that was on the side, go back to the other door to go to projector, just go on my knees on the laptop to actually do stuff. And it was really awkward, but it was fun.
Oh, great.
And the rest of the con was just amazing as well. I've seen other animations and other artists, and it just felt so inspired. I just felt, no, engineering just sucks in comparison. Like, when I started engineering, there was the initiation. They threw an egg at me, and they were wondering why I was mad. Like, they threw, like, that directly in the blind spot, so I was really shocked and was really pissed. And it didn't even tell me there was an actual initiation. Like, I was really, really, really angered. There was one of our teachers which was really incompetent. He could barely speak any words of French, and he was giving a class in French. So I was trying to struggle with understanding him, and the fact that he spoke so badly in French was the reason why I caught that the Wikipedia page he made about himself he was the one who made it, because it was written just like he spoke. And that's against Wikipedia's code of conduct. You cannot write your own article. You cannot edit anything about yourself. There was a guy, I don't remember who, basically he was trying to correct fact about himself. So he had to get someone else to quote him and to take that to actually fix it.
Why just use anonymous? It'll just be like I repeat them.
I think it's the source you use that has to be from someone else. But engineering was really awkward. I had some classes that I liked, but I just realized, no, animation is just too much better. And during my engineering classes, I had my laptop was animating ponies instead of actually listening to a class.
I did that too. I took a beginner animation course, and I did. Anyone see Black Books, the show? Old British show. It was amazing. But I did it in ponies. But I really wish I didn't do that. That's showing a power level to an entire class. That's horrible.
I was at the back seat, so the only one who actually saw my power level was a classmate.
You had to present them. So like in front of the screen was like just ponies like doing stuff. It was a comedy. It was definitely a comedy thing. But I really wish I didn't do that.
That happens. Like, we have to learn from our past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like me learning to not to go to engineering. Though it's probably the school itself that was just not for me. The presentations were really boring. One of the teachers, the same incompetent one, he gave points if you use Prezi instead of using PowerPoint. And I had no freaking idea how to use Prezi, so I did it in PowerPoint. Some of the questions that he actually asked, you had to answer with company names instead of, numbers and mathematics about, particles, because I was, studying electronic
I would be
engineering.
infuriated. I actually left college classes for that.
Yeah. So after 2 years of studying that, I was crying. I was feeling like garbage, and the pony fandom just felt like the most amazing thing. So I basically go talk to my mom and my dad and just say I'd like to be an animator instead. And at one point, my dad meets a friend back in Montreal, and basically he talks to him, and he's told about a school of 3D animation. And he's actually told, yeah, it actually pays well to be a 3D animator. Well, decently.
Well, not the startings. That's
No. But when you get actually higher, you actually get paid more, and I think that's one of the reasons. That and the fact that the class itself was a university level, so you could be proud because he has actually a doctorate. So
That's what I enjoy about this fandom is that it brings out a lot of talent.
Mm.
I've seen people like start with writing and then go into art, and it's great to see. I love it.
And I had to move from my city to Montreal to go study it, so I had to learn how to live in an apartment. It was a really weird experience, and that the fact that I was alone in an apartment forced me to actually go to the fandom to actually talk to people, because you get lonely when you just have
Oh yeah. How's it
yeah. So that's actually when I got to discover about BabsCon. Remember the disaster of the BabsCon 2015 animation? I was not really much part of that, but they delivered the project 2 weeks too late. And that's basically one of the things I have learned. If you have to deliver, you have to deliver. There's some cases, for example, if you have a promo that is, you can just make a part of it and just release it. But once in a while, you just have to deliver. So when I did the promo for BabsCon in 2017, they actually asked me to do the pony convention promo. So they would have the promo to show to a furry convention, and I had 2 weeks to get the entire thing done. I got the entire thing done 3 hours after the deadline, and the way that I actually got out of trouble was that I had a version that they could actually display when they started. One of the things that they actually asked me to fix at the last minute that I had to wait until. Basically, the C in BabsCon was supposed to be a capital, and I actually, I went with lowercase because it kind of makes sense that Babs would be spelled in uppercase and con in lower. Yeah, but they asked me to change it, so I had a version with that not fixed, but everything else that worked, except one shot, but I had to fix it after those 3 hours, but I had something to deliver. And that's one of the things I actually learned from the Brony fandom that actually helps with VFX. They want results.
That's also why I go, which is you can take this other places where certain content creation won't help really at all. Again, back to throwing shade at analyst.
Yeah.
It won't really help outside of fandom, but
well, analysis kind of teaches editing, but
some don't.
What kind of job actually has just editing, but not editing for movies, where you have to learn much more,
That's
film
true.
theory and. But then again, if you don't really have any goals with it, can I really blame them for just doing YouTube videos just to? Be
I'm totally okay with the analyst concept. I'm just against a lot of analysts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of a society problem. It's more like a group problem than.
Well, the furry fandom has a name for what we call horseman.
Popufur.
Yeah, popufur.
Yep.
Sounds disgusting.
Yeah. I wonder what anime fans have.
Cosplay? I don't know. Yeah, they probably have some. No, because they actually just become artists and I don't know.
They became armies.
No, artists and actually get mangas done.
Yeah.
If someone finds it out, that'd be great.
What are you regarding with cosplayers? Fashion?
No, no,
Well,
no.
it can be
So,
cosplayers or anybody who's in the anime fandom who creates stuff and become famous for that.
what's
or-
the horse fame equivalent in the anime?
So is it, are we positive fame or negative fame?
Well,
Positive.
yeah.
Positive. The equivalent of horse fame for, let's see, for cosplayers is called being cos famous.
Okay.
And then with
Who's making these names? They're just really uncreative.
Once in a while, you try to make puns.
Brony is very uncreative.
well, it's anytime an anime fan tries to make a German thing, it backfires. So we gotta just let it happen.
You can't make a meme. Memes just happen.
It just happens. As for anime and manga people, animation, I don't know if there's a term for becoming famous with it, but I know with manga, with would-be manga creators, they're called apprentice wannabes, just because they want to be apprentices, literally. So, but I don't think there's any kind of like famous thing for them. But I know that some of them end up being hired onto studios once in a while. That's just them going career.
Oh, yeah. What was it? The Agresco voice actor.
Which one?
Wait.
English.
Rina-chan?
No,
Wait,
it's not Rina.
was
It's not
Rina-chan on that one?
No. It's, I don't think it's Rina-chan, but she did Double Rainbow.
Well, Rina-chan wasn't about Rainbow.
Was she?
Yeah, she was playing Twilight.
No, it wasn't a Rainbow.
The one from Rainbow Dash, I don't remember.
We can do questions now.
Yeah. Oh, I was I was talking about getting a job out of animation. I actually got a job a few months ago as an environment artist in a special effects studio. So I'm actually working on multi-million-dollar movies. Though it's very satisfying because the people there are super nice, they're super patient, they teach me a lot of stuff that actually get to be useful for fan projects and vice versa. And I gotta say, the VFX industry is very special when you're an artist, but the VFX industry has problems. Like you have big companies that try to bid for the lowest bidder for the cheapest special effects, and it forces so much competition that they're actually having a loss, and there are not enough companies that they can actually have some weight into it. So that's one of the problems that we have in the industry. So, for example, with MLP, they have a very low budget compared to a lot of other shows.
Oh yeah.
I think right now it's either $120,000 or $140,000 per episode.
It's a miracle that it looks this good.
I think it's because they're very clever. They reuse stuff and they use a style that's very appealing to the eye, while not taking too long to actually produce. And there's a lot of things that are made to look cheap but don't have that appeal. And one of the problems when you work with Flash, I'm going to show you live with Flash. I'm going to take that rig because that's kind of a rig. So I think. So here's the transformation tools that you have with Flash. That's all. So you can scale on an axis. You can scale another one. You can obviously move around.
It's so disturbing to see that.
You can skew if you want to make something to bend, and you can rotate, which is kind of like skewing on both sides. That's all you can do with Flash with pieces. While I have a Toon Boom on this side. So actually, maybe check it out. Okay, so let me grab the control. Let me grab the controller. There is a deformer for the body somewhere. Okay, so let me grab this somewhere. Sorry, it's a very slow laptop, and I'm used to work on my desktop, which has 24 gigs of RAM, 4-core CPU with at 3.6 gigahertz, 6 terabytes of storage. Definitely not the level of that little thing that I bought in 2011. Though that thing helped with Good Morning Baltimore, which it's not the best in terms of projects, but it proves that you can use this to actually animate. So okay, so controllers.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't grab aspect. So there's this thing right here. Grab the right one. Okay, so there's this one. Let me zoom those. There we go. So I have this controller right here. Seriously? No. Oh, okay, I see what I.
Oh, it's so complicated.
Well, it's less complicated at home because I don't have to work with a freaking trackpad.
I know. But essentially, with
But look at the way I can actually take everything at once with the deformer. And okay, it's look kind of creepy, but I actually
take the enter. That's cool.
yeah, I'm gonna show that right after I show the deformer, so you can actually get to bend things like that. So if I want some very flowy motion, that's the tool they actually use for MLP the movie. So, and you know that thing is not very. It's not meant for starters. You have to learn a lot of things. Like just if you just look at all the nodes, the blue things. Well, the light blue things are just a symbol. The dark blue things are things to switch or filter, and the green are just pegs. So I take this peg here, I rotate it, and actually I can get some 3D movement like that. And the thing is that it seems like super complicated. All I did was use the feature that they have in Harmony to just move pieces, well, 2D pieces in 3D space. That's all. And the head shape is just a bunch of shapes that are combined to create the final shape. So basically that. Once in a while you think that's going to be super complicated, you just have to be clever. I can go with a simpler rig. Where's Spike?
Spike is a simpler one.
Yeah, well, basically Spike is a simpler one because don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Thank you. So Spike here. Okay, let me grab the controller. Okay, should be this one. No, not this one. This one. I should have named them, but those are for so. So basically, if I want to have some head movement with that, I actually have just those symbols, and I can just fake the eyes moving, so I can have that movement like that, all with that thing. And basically, you think it might sound hard, but it's just one shape, and I use the actual shape of the head has the cutter. Well, they call it a cutter. It's basically a mask, so everything that is outside won't apply to the.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the thing is,
It's like illusion of 3D.
yeah, and the thing is that MLP kind of does something a bit like that, but in Flash. It takes time, but it's so. Yeah, we have 10 minutes left. Though I think since we're the last panel and there's an hour after that, after the convention, I can push it forward without getting in trouble. Unless I pretend I didn't know about it. Okay, there's a camera filming it, so they'll know about it. But do you have any questions about animation?
Just like starting equipment, or just general questions like things that we like.
I can talk about starting equipment right now. Well, do you think about questions? So, basically I was trying to get myself a computer and school was starting and I didn't have much time. I just thought, okay, I need a computer. Let's go to Best Buy. So I basically just spent $1,000 on a machine. It was kind of meant for gaming, but it looked bad, so it was not for gamers. It looked like one of those green Alienwares. It was basically just, I was glad with the specs I had. So until the graphics card crapped, and I had to get myself a little graphics card that was cheap enough. That was a nice birthday gift.
What I'd actually recommend is literally like a caveman style, where I started with an animator's peg, which is essentially like 3 holes, like specific holes, and then you just put pieces of paper on it, like with a hole puncher, and just go back and forth with the paper, and like it's usually you can actually use printer paper too, but you just do that and like just animate in like very old style.
I started pony animation on that laptop, Well, personally, it's because I don't have the traditional thing. But yeah, you can go with something very simple. That and, for example, to frame the pictures, a phone has enough pixels to actually get a good picture of that thing. You don't even need a scanner, even though it's probably
There's some apps that scans.
yeah.
There's one
And
app that will scan it and like actually put it into really good quality.
yeah, and there's a lot of tools that actually get to rectify the image for the perspective. The only thing is, if you take a photo with a bad camera sensor, just go with a long exposure to get the cleanest. Yeah, with exposure, learn how cameras work. If you learn how cameras work, you'll be able to avoid the shortcomings that look weird, and you think, hey, yeah, that kind of looks bad. I should buy myself a better camera for that, and I have to spend too much. I think I say that a lot. If you work smart, you don't have to work as brute.
So any other or sorry, actually, any questions in general?
That laptop that I got, I actually got it while doing pizza deliveries back in 2011. So we've gone far.
Favorite movie? Animation wise.
Oh, damn it! I don't have one favorite movie with animation. I have one with live action, but I didn't really think of a favorite movie for animation. No, for live action, 2001: A Space Odyssey. The filmmaking in that is top notch.
Okay. I thought it was just gonna be unrelated. It's like, oh, I like space. I thought it was gonna be something completely unrelated to animating in general. It's like, oh, well.
I like space. Yeah. Well, I mean, who doesn't like space?
Everyone.
We're in space right now.
No one likes space. No one wants to die.
Well, I mean, we're all gonna die.
Oh my god.
Which is the reason why you should go in animation, because you're gonna die in a way.
We're gonna
We're all-
backpedal from that. Favorite movie for me, I've talked about before, which was Treasure Planet. The amount of details they put into Hawkins' hair and just like the movement, the beginning scene where he's on like the solar glider and going through like the factory is so beautiful, and like
The mix of 2D and 3D as well.
if once you get into animation a lot and look through a lot of things, you start to realize how much love an animator put in. It's like sort of like when you hear a musician play a song, you can almost feel their emotions coming from the song. You can definitely feel an animator or a character designer when you see the character. You can see exactly how they feel. It's one.
You really don't have any questions.
No, surprisingly.
So we either covered all of what they were thinking, or any thoughts on something you want?
Yeah, no, we could
No.
just
Yeah, I have a thought on the difference between Flash and 2D. The mapping, the lines and everything, that always happen.
The way the lines
So-
are.
What does that represent? Is that the
Wait, which lines? The one right screen or the left screen?
on the right screen where it looks like everything's wrapped?
Okay, so essentially, what you can see this is sort of like the nervous system of your body, where so each piece of spike is a shape, right? But then the small lines will relate each shape to each other. So, for example, his arm. The arm is a shape, but the arm shape will probably be connected with a line to the hand shape. You'll see that in the lines, and that'll be like, okay, these two are related. But it also can be like, okay, if this rotates, this can rotate a different way. So, unlike Flash, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna move this thing here. This one's like, this can actually relate to each other in very different ways. Like, if this goes over this, it'll change color, which is really good for like lenses.
The blue ones are basically related to stuff that actually shows on screen. For example, that composite that is connected to the display, it basically just composites everything on that pass with that group. So everything that is actually shown in that group, for example, I'm gonna just unzoom and.
Once you really get into it, it's extremely useful, but yeah, it's mind-blowing. I saw that the first time. You're like, okay, you just do this, this, this. I'm like, wow, you just literally made like a supercomputer in front of me. I'm just trying to know what you did.
The composite basically takes multiple things and just join them together and layering them. So there's that group that is also connected to that group with the composite. And there's a drawing itself which is connected to a green one, and the green one is not it's not taking a picture, but actually just a position. So it's connected to a deformation, which basically is just gonna tell how to be placed and how to be deformed.
This will especially make sure that you can put limits too to make sure that like you said with the Rainbow Dash, like you can just put things anywhere and then that's how it'll be. This one it could put limits, so like okay, make sure his arm doesn't go this high because that you'll break his arm then.
For example, there's that deformation drawing that applies to those two things. So I can tell, okay, if I move that arm, for example, that point, I'm going to pull at that arm and something else that is also connected to that arm. So it saves a lot of time. One of the things, if you look at characters, for example, like Vinyl Scratch, you have her hair that shows on the back of her head, but also behind her neck. Since it's in front and behind, you cannot just join them as a single group in Flash. So you have to animate the two together. Although with how Toon Boom has those links that are on both sides, you can tell him just join them as a link at how they move, but not how they're grouped and layered. So the neck can be in between those two and not just be influenced by those two. So it helps a lot.
Does that sort of answer your question, or is still like a little bit iffy about certain things?
It answers my question.
Okay.
Lines all linked together.
Yeah. There's also the layer group for some representation a bit more like Flash. So if you want it to feel more like Flash, you can go with it. Toon Boom doesn't really use symbols like in Flash, so you have to go with multiple groups of layers instead. So for some people, it might not be as enjoyable, but yeah.
I mean, it makes things a lot easier. There's a reason why Disney uses this thing.
Yep.
Wasn't Finding Dory put on Toon Boom? Was it?
Well,
Yes, it was.
Finding Dory was done by Pixar, Disney.
No, just in general. Oh, Finding Dory in the movie. I know.
Because Finding Dory was done, I think they used Maya for the basically the interface, and it was basically rendered by Pixar's render tool that is called RenderMan. It's a renderer that they've been working on for over 20 years. Though, well, I said that, but in around 2005 or 2006, they started creating an entirely new renderer that also was also called RenderMan. Basically, the thing that they had back in the, I'll say 20 years, I think it was 40 actually. When they started, they had a thing that, well, they called it RISE, which meant render everything you ever saw. So they kind of basically forced an acronym out of it. Basically, it's a system that handles how to create the 3D and put it on the screen. So it involves ray tracing if you have light and you have an object. For example, if I cast a shadow, the shadow itself corresponds to my shape and the positions of the lights. So you have to calculate that, and you have to find a way to calculate it in a way so a computer can actually handle it instead of having to use an entire supercomputer to take all of the things that won't influence the final result.
When Disney renders their stuff, they use server farms.
Yep.
They have huge farms of just servers, and then I read somewhere that Zootopia every second or frame, either one, every piece took 16 hours to render.
Probably every frame, although it says every frame, but it's probably every frame per eye because they rendered it in stereoscopic for actually watching with 3D glasses. Well, that's a
frame, 16 hours.
And that's the thing. That's the final result. But you also have to do previews. For example, if you work in some scenes that have very dynamic lighting and you want to have a result you're satisfied with, you have to go with proxies. Usually, well, in my studio, we have to do dailies where you have some kind of version of what it looks like so far. So we have to re-render everything, or at least re-render the new part. So it might not be final quality all the time, though near the end they're going to ask for final quality to fine-tune little things. So it takes even more power. And obviously when you're a fan animator, you just have like the one computer you bought at Best Buy, so you don't have that much time. You have to be clever. In Luna's determination, the 3D stuff, except a few shots that actually needed to be rendered every frame, all I did was just one frame of the background, and I just distorted it according to the depth map. So basically, everything that was closer to the camera, well, basically that map is a picture of the same thing. Everything that is it is white is closer to the camera, and everything that is black is farther away. So basically, I sent the render of one still frame, and I basically sent it to After Effects, and I just distorted it to actually move farther. So all the lighting was all the same everywhere for all the scenes, and I just distorted it with that. And it looked good enough for what I wanted to, so I didn't have to do all that work. So, as I've said many times, be clever, cheat a lot. Once in a while,
Have fun.
once in a while, all I do with some of the scenes, since they have just something very far away, like you have the main characters in focus, and all you need is just very blurry background. All I did was just take a real photo, put a filter on it, change the colors for me to be happy with it, and it actually gave a background that actually worked. Like, yeah. We're kind of running out of time, so do you have any closing statement?
We're over time.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're running out of time.
Well, no, just go have fun.
Yeah,
That's about it.
so,
Yeah, I have to go do stuff.
oh, go ahead. Actually, yes, I can.
Dance going on right now? Is there a dance going on right now?
There's Odyssey Eurobeat, who should be playing, starting playing right now. So,
Have fun.
okay. So if I have, I thought you had a question.
What's your favorite?
Blue. Ironically, my OC is lots of green. Basically, I went with green because green is a much brighter color, and there's a lot of range, so you can make green feel much different. And back in the days, I didn't really know much how to make OCs, so I went with white coat, since you can just take a white coat and mix it with everything you feel like. So I just went with green because I just thought, it kind of looks like vinyl scratch, but can I have like vinyl scratch but green? It looked good, so I just went with it. That's one of the things I realized with making an OC. Usually you want the coat to be brighter than the main, so the main pops a bit more, actually draws attention from the coat to the main, and then obviously the eyes. The only exception in the main 6 to that rule is Applejack, who has a brighter mane than her coat. And it's one of the things that they actually do in the show that's pretty clever. Also, the fact that they never, ever use pure black for anything but the inside of the eyes. So you can have the brightest thing with, for example, you have the inside, but it's also surrounded by something super bright. So the contrast between those two, that is much more important, draws the attention to those. And they have very big and very expressive eyes, so the idea that you can play with it draws attention. So if you look, for example, at so let me go grab back to Pony, just the fact that those hooves are very, very undetailed, they can cut on that stuff just to focus on better eye expression. So it's kind of one of the reasons why the ponies just look so much more alive just on their stuff than a lot of cartoons, just because of those eyes. So, and I think it's mostly due to Lauren Faust's attention and care to her design in the show. She really cared about making it good, even in a tiny budget. So, her style reflected to it. So, yeah. All for a question about my favorite color. I ramble a lot. Yeah, you ramble a lot once in a while about things, and it actually draws some ideas. For example, Luna's determination actually came out of an argument with a musician. I was really peeved with him because I was trying to tell him that in the show, if you look at season 3, there was Kudulu's dream, a sequence where Luna shows up. There is a part of a scene. So do you want to see that part of the scene so I can have some context? Okay. Yeah, actually, let me see if I have this scene. Do I have season? I'm gonna need my external hard drive. Actually, I don't even know if it's with the rules of the thing, but I'll try that again. again, I mean, all right, so let's try my luck. Come on, technology. There we go. So if I am season 3, Blue West and Bloomville. So I think the scene is. And
Luna! I thought you were a headless horse. Luna!
You were
I thought you were a headless
but I
horse.
was not.
You
were
were
mistaken.
You are so much better than the headless horse. So much better than the headless horse.
I am the princess of the night. I am the princess of the night.
I don't want to go too far, but you've heard about just that theme that just plays when she comes by. They reused that a few times. The other 2 episodes where she visits the rest of the CMC, it shows up in what's the name of it? It was like Do Princess's Dream of Magic Sheep. Basically, I was talking to a musician. I was trying to suggest him, could we try to make something with that theme? And he was trying to rewrite the entire leitmotif entirely because he wanted it not to feel like the same. Just thinking, this is derivative work. You're trying to push it to sound differently from the thing I'm trying to make. Something that is inspired by. You kind of want to make it less like the thing it's supposed to be based on. What's the point? Are you trying to get away from the copyright issues? But because my thing has Luna in it, I'm gonna be in trouble anyway. So basically, I was really, really, really angry at him. I was trying to find something to prove that it could work until I came. Well, I came across. I knew about the channel back in the days, but I came across Luna's determination. Decided, I mean, that there's Luna in the title. The thumbnail looks good, and just look. Okay, it kind of sounds like something interesting about Luna. Let's give it a watch. I just watch and just. I say watch. I just give a listen to the song and just realize there's lots of potential in that song, and I just realized there's a story around it. And the project actually came from that argument. So once in a while, things really happen weird. And another thing that also happened was basically I was having a conversation with a cartoonist about Sunset Shimmer. It just came, the main plot of the Fall of Sunset Shimmer just came to me while I was discussing it with him. Well, I say with him, Richard, one of those two. And at that moment, I just realized, hey, there's a potential in that. So once in a while, things just happen out of the blue. So if you have an idea that just feels like the most epic thing ever, usually it's going to sound epic because you draw upon the things you feel epic. For example, stuff like Star Wars, which is just a giant story. That stuff is interesting, but once in a while, the ideas that just pop up that just sound like nothing else are the things that will be the most interesting because nobody actually has seen that. So there's that. When you do fan animation, you try to do something different from the show, because obviously, what's the point of doing something that is the same as the show if the show has more budget, does it better than you? So that's one of the things that are. Any questions or derived from?
I never noticed this before, but with his buttons, this is shimmering like a tail buttons. It's got
If you talk about that little line here, or
yeah, the back line, but it actually goes all the way up. It actually goes all the way up. Press play.
Thus it is my duty to come into your dreams. Thus it is my duty
Yeah.
to come into your dreams.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back.
And it's not over her entire body. It's just it's not over her entire body.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at that corner here, you can kind of see that same effect. So basically, what they did, lots of people say that the show is animated in Flash. It's true, but the thing is that animated in Flash, but also with After Effects. They basically take most of their scenes, they just throw them in After Effects by layer, and they do some effects for those layers. So basically, they went with the original plate that was animated properly, and they actually added above it a plate where all the corners were distorted, but the center was fine. Well, I say that it's probably not even that. It's probably the center was also distorted, but they actually erased it to change the alpha in the middle. Just applied it to them. There's other things in the show. I'm trying to find a good example. Do we have? Oh wait, I think I have a shot that. Oh no, she takes it and moves. I'm trying to find a shot where you get to see Rarity using her magic. Okay, I'm probably going too far. Oh, please, please, please. Okay, I can't find one. I'm not gonna waste my time too much. But the effect that they put in the horn for the magic is an effect that they actually have in Flash, like one preset thing that they just reuse all the time. The effect that they actually use on objects, since the object always has a different shape, is basically take the shape of the object, grow the size. Basically, they grow the size on two separate layers, and one of them is slightly bigger, and then they put just a wave to make that wavy effect with some color filters, and that's how they do the magic. And that thing is really easy to just dump the whole thing in it. So if you have a scene where you have that magic effect, you can just save your time. Just go with presets like that. With MLP, since they don't have a lot of budget, being clever like that helps a lot. You don't have to pay too much to actually produce it. You can actually focus on better things instead. There was also in season 3 the Crystal Ponies, which are basically, it's really stupid, but they take an effect that's just called cell pattern, and they just take that the evolution, they just crank it as time goes, so the effect actually just looks like it actually some kind of evolution. They put some glow, some sparkles on the characters, and that's all. They don't have to do anything, they actually have the result that they want. So, and that's one of the things I was really impressed back in the days, was just thinking, how the hell do you do that in Flash? You don't. You just go with After Effects. So, any other questions? Because I think it's getting a bit late and kind of don't want to overstate my welcome either. I think it should be it for tonight. I kind of want to say I wish you all the great rest of the con, but the con is kind of almost over. I have a safe trip home, I guess. And, if you are interested in trying out animation, just grabbing a trial Flash. I think the trial is like 21 days, not a lot, but just to get an idea of the feel. Obviously, having fun, trying to express yourself. Don't be afraid. Actually, I might have. Yeah, I think I have the one from. Because when, for example, I talked about the other panels, but if you want, okay, not that panels, preview. No. Oh, yes. Renders. If you want to get an idea of how the project you want to work on will feel, you can just make an animatic, and it's gonna look bad. I'm gonna cut it abruptly. That thing looks really bad when you look at the final result or just anything at all. That thing happens. It gives you an idea of how things will happen. You know, you can actually start just animating, just making up stuff like that. It gives you an idea of how to use tweens. You can create some movements, for example. Trying to find a good idea of a scene that actually involved just the idea of making ideas for blocking and just the way you actually have the characters moving. That helps a lot to get started. You can mess around. So don't be afraid of making stuff that might look bad, because everybody starts bad. You gotta start somewhere to get somewhere. So I think that's gonna be my closing statements. If you want to start with animation, don't be afraid. Just do it. Do it. Oh my god. Actually, a funny story about that. At BronyCon 2015, when everybody was doing that, we had a panel with, there was Pika PD, there was Crown Prince, there was Minty James. I think Shades of Ever Free was there as well. And I don't remember the last one. It's usually just 6 people on the table. And one of the questions basically just asks, how do you animate in Flash? So, and PD being very energetic, very, it shows in his animation, it shows in his character, it just shows how he answers question. He just jumps on the table, go and do it, just do it. And Animated James was just like that, he just goes away, he just walks away by the door. Like, nope, not doing that. Obviously he came back. That's an idea. That's an idea. Some animators just, you'll see their personality just go by their animation. The way they talk, the way they interact with stuff will show by their animation style. So, that happens. So, though also there are some people who are very, obviously very distant from their styles. They could be, do very, very action scenes and just be the most introvert guy ever. So, yeah. I think that's about it. So, hope you had fun, and hope I'll see you at other conventions. I'm literally gonna come back next year because HRPC is just an amazing convention. Just for first year, I just had the feel of mini conventions that go for years. So it's clear they worked a lot to get it done. So, and I can't wait to see how it's gonna be next year. So, thank you.